Hi, thanks again for joining in. This is actually the 6th Sunday that we have not been able to meet together. I really miss seeing you, and I'm looking forward to seeing and greeting you again. We have no idea how long this is going to last, but we have to make the best out of the current situation. I thank you for logging in, and I invite you to share this service with others and come joining and let's participate in worship. We're going to have an instrumental and then the word, which will be entitled Christianity in a COVID Crisis. Just this week, I participated in a Zoom meeting with other Christian leaders, religious leaders, and we reflected on the impact of this pandemic and how the church should respond. We also looked on the account in John chapter 6, and my own personal thoughts on the passage was further enlightened by the contributions of others. This COVID-19 pandemic is new to all of us because nothing like this has happened within the last century. Major countries of the world are grappling for solutions while their economies crumble and the social life of their societies are transformed. The continued mass closures and lockdowns will have a lasting damaging effect on the collapsing economies of the world. A 2017 Market Facts and Opinion survey estimated that 68% of us had no emergency cash reserves, and 22% of us did not have enough funds to buy food consistently. And this situation only worsens. This is the reality. Governments throughout the world are fishing for answers, and so too are many individuals and families. What ought to be the Christian response during this pandemic? Do not lose hope in this or in any other situation. We are not in this alone. We serve a God who is able. In Ephesians chapter 6 verse 20, the Apostle Paul declares that God can do exceeding abundantly above all that we ask or think, according to the power that works in us. Regardless of your circumstance, I want you to remember that God is able. And God is not just able, He's able to do all that we ask or think. He's not only able to do all that we ask or think, He's able to do above all that we ask or think. God is able not just to do above all that we ask or think, but He's able to do exceeding abundantly above all that we ask or think. You know, this is supposed to be an election year, and every election year, many political parties come out with lots of promises. And very often during their term of office, they are not able to fulfill all the promises that have been made. Sometimes you have some craftsmen that come to your house to do some joinery or masonry or plumbing, and they come with all sorts of promises of how excellent they work, and they criticize the work that was done before. And when their job is completed, sometimes they're not able to fulfill the promises that they have made. But we serve a God who is able. We serve a God who is more than able. He's able to do exceeding abundantly above all that we can ask or think. God can do it, but He does it according to the power that works in us. But what are the mechanisms that ignite this power to work in us? It appears as if there is a latent power within us that needs to be ignited to accomplish the apparently impossible situations in our lives. I want to look at John chapter 6, and we want to reflect on an event that shows the exceeding power of God to do that which is above what we can even anticipate. In verses 1 to 3, it says, "After these things, Jesus went over the Sea of Galilee, which is the Sea of Tiberias. Then a great multitude followed Him, because they saw His signs which He performed on those who were diseased. And Jesus went up on the mountain, and there He sat with His disciples." Now, Jesus was probably tired and weary from the pressure of facing the crowd day after day, ministering the word, healing the sick, and delivering the oppressed. He sought some refuge across the lake on the top of some unknown mountain, which is said to have been about 9 miles away from the nearest town. He needed time to be alone with God and with His disciples. And despite the demands of public ministry, Jesus very often would come aside and rest a while. He valued private time. There are several accounts of Him drawing away from the crowd to spend private time with His Father in solitude. He would sometimes draw away with His disciples and explain things to them which He had not shared with the crowds. Even the night before He died, He spent quality private time with His Father, with just a handful of carefully chosen friends nearby. In His anguish, He found heavenly strength to face the overwhelming challenges that He was about to encounter. If Jesus needed private time, more so do we. This period of staying home and so-called social distancing gives us an opportunity to appreciate the value of private time. Time alone with God. time alone with those close to us, away from the hustle and bustle of life and the demands of the crowd. Let's not minimize the potential benefits of quiet, private times of refreshing, replenishing, and reflection. Do not waste the opportunity you have, because this is an opportunity you have to be at home with your family, with God, and with yourself. So there is power in private time. Secondly, there is power in a problem. From verses 4, it says, from verses 4 to 6, it says, "Now the Passover, a feast of the Jews, was near. Then Jesus lifted up his eyes, and seeing a great multitude coming toward him, he said to Philip, 'Where shall we buy bread that these may eat?' But this he said to test him, for he himself knew what he would do." Problems present opportunities. We must not be afraid of problems. Jesus already knew what he was going to do, but he let us face the problem to bring out the potential in us for the solution. He knew what he was going to do, but still he asked his disciples, "Where shall we find bread that these may eat?" Even though Jesus valued private time, he was not so obsessed with self that he could not see the needs of others. He lifted his eyes and he saw the needs of others. Some of us, even though we are not at work, we are confident in receiving a paycheck at the end of the month. Or we are confident in our savings, and that our savings can take us through this downturn. But while we are safe in the security of our homes with our families, there are others out there who are in need. We need to lift our eyes beyond our borders, beyond our comfort zones, and respond to the needs of others. There is a problem, and the Lord is allowing us to face it to prove us. What does our response prove about who we are? There is power in private time, but there is also power in a problem, because a problem brings an opportunity. Thirdly, there is power in perception. Verses 7 to 9. Philip answered him and said, 200 denarii worth of bread is not sufficient for them, that every one of them may have a little. One of his disciples, Andrew, Simon Peter's brother, said to him, "There is a lad here who has 5 loaves and 2 small fish. But what are they among so many?" How do you perceive your circumstance? How you perceive it is how you will receive it. If I have an orange and you ask me to share the orange with you, and I suck everything, I eat everything down to the pulp, and then I give you the seed, you might say these seeds are just trash and throw it away. But someone else see the potential in this seed, might plant it in the ground, and that seed can be transformed into an orange tree. The orange tree can produce other oranges, producing more seeds, and those seeds can be used to produce an orchard. You might just have a seed. Don't dispose of it. You are seeing a seed, but God is seeing a potential orchard. You know, when Moses sent 10 spies to view the promised land, actually he sent 12 spies. But 10 of them came back with a bad report. Even though they had the evidence of the grapes and all the things that God has promised. They said, but there are giants in the land, and we are like grasshoppers in their eyes. And their attitude, their negative attitude and the negative perception spread around the society like a virus. And everybody wailed and was so despondent that they spent 35 years in the wilderness of despair, until God rose up a next generation. And under the leadership of Joshua, they sent 2 spies. And those 2 spies received a report from the people in Jericho saying, from the time we heard, our forefathers heard about how God delivered you, we were so scared of you. 38 years ago, their fathers had an opportunity to take the land, but they couldn't take it because of their perception. God is still a God of the impossible. Can he accomplish what he wants to accomplish in your generation? Or will your perception of your circumstance hinder you from possessing what God has destined for you? Moses stood before the Red Sea with the Egyptian soldiers behind him. And he cried out to God and saying, God, what shall I do now? Before me is the Red Sea, behind me is the army. And God says, Moses, what do you have in your hand? You're here crying for me. Use what you have in your hand. That rod I gave you, it caused the 10 plagues in Egypt. Use the rod. What you have in your hand, you can use it. And God could accomplish the impossible. Moses parted the Red Sea with just a rod. David slew Goliath with just a sling. You may think that your resources are not enough, but little is much when God is in it. The disciples said, we don't have the resources to meet this challenge. The people are hungry and we don't have what it takes to feed them. The disciples said, all we have is a little lad with 5 barley loaves and 2 fish. Barley was poor man flour, and wheat is the kind of flour that rich men used. So it wasn't just 5 barley loaves, it was 5 loaves of poor man's bread. And it was just 2 small fish, it wasn't kingfish. And the disciples looked at it and it minimized it. What is this among so many? What can I offer among such a great pandemic? What do I have to give when there is so much need, when we're surrounded by so much need? But one little pebble thrown into the water could cause a ripple. One extra bag of groceries given to a needy family can make a world of difference to them. This young boy had the perception that if he gave all that he had to Jesus Christ was able to do something with it. Whatever you have in your hand, you can use it if you're willing to lose it. Do not think that your contribution is too small to make a difference. There is power in private time. There is power in a problem, but there is also power in perception. Then in verse 10, Jesus said, make the people sit down. Now there was much grass in the place. So the men sat down in number, about 5,000. This is the power of process. Jesus could have snapped his finger and caused bread and fish to rain from heaven. God rained manna in the desert for 40 years. But Jesus didn't choose to do it that way. He wanted the people to organize themselves. He wanted them to set their lives in order. There had to be a process before the product. Coal is changed into diamonds by intense pressure and heat. And the transformation takes, I'm told, millions of years. Gold and silver are refined by fire. Let's not despise the processing that God may want to take us through. Students must study before they become scholars. Athletes must train before they become winners. You need to set things in order for the provision to come. Discipline comes before development. There is power in private time. There is power in a problem. There is power in perception. But there is also power in a process. Then verse 11 goes on to say, Jesus took the loaves, and when he had given thanks, he distributed them to the disciples, and the disciples to those who were sitting down, and likewise of the fish as much as they wanted. So here we see the power of partnership. First, there is a little boy who comes to a meeting with just lunch that is adequate for him. 5 barley loaves and 2 small fish. Then there are the disciples to whom this little boy presents his meal. The disciples present this gift to Jesus. Jesus offers it to the Father. And then he gives it to the disciples, who distributes it to people who have organized themselves and who have allowed themselves to go through the process by following the instructions that Jesus gave. Everyone had a part in this miracle, even the crowd, because if they were not there, there would not be need for a miracle. So it's not just about you and God. People also have a part to play. Sometimes even the people who do not see the potential in the little that you have to offer. This young boy, he could have said, these disciples don't think much of me. I'm not going to cooperate with them. They despise my meal. I could go behind a rock and eat it. I don't have to share. I don't have to deal with this group. I don't have to deal with this group that despises me and thinks little of me. But the partnership brought synergy. The partnership maximized the potential. The Bible tells us 2 are better than 1 because they have a greater reward for their labor. If a short man wants to pick a mango and he cannot reach it, he can let another short man sit on his shoulder and reach it for him. And the 2 of them working together can accomplish the synergy of achieving the mango. You are not alone in this. Partner with others. There is power in private time. There is power in a problem. There is power in a process. There is power in partnership. And verse 12 and 13 gives us additional resources. It says, so when they were filled, so the people ate as much as they wanted. And when they were filled, they ate as much as they wanted, and now they were filled. He said to his disciples, gather up the fragments that remain, so that nothing is lost. Therefore they gathered them up and filled 12 baskets with the fragments of the 5 barley loaves which were left over by those who had eaten. After so many people, 5,000 men plus women and children were fed to their satisfaction. Each disciple had a basket full for dinner that night. A prudent man prepares for the future. If a farmer eats all his seed in one season, he will have nothing to sow for the next harvest. Joseph saved during the years of abundance, and he had enough to save the world during the years of famine. God is a God of abundance, but he's not a God of waste. Prepare for the future. The quality of life we have tomorrow is influenced by the choices we make today. Gather the fragments. Let nothing be wasted. The final power that we need to consider, and this is really something that we need to guard against, is that of popularity. In verses 14 to 15 it says, then those men, when they had seen the sign that Jesus did, said, this is truly the prophet who is come into the world. Therefore, when Jesus perceived that they were about to come and take him by force to make him king, he departed again to the mountain by himself alone. You know, just as he started, he ended. He returned to private time, time of reflection. You know, in times like these, there are those who will want to present themselves as messiahs. Don't do anything just for popularity. Some people will do nothing except there's media and cameras around. Jesus says in Matthew 6, 3-4, when you give to the poor, don't let your left hand know what your right hand is doing. Give your contributions privately. Your Father sees what you do in private, and he will reward you. You know, Jesus would sometimes perform miracles and tell the beneficiaries not to tell anyone. Jesus, who is the Messiah, was not ready to be crowned king. His agenda was to go to the cross before being crowned. So we shouldn't be too quick to gain the accolades of men. Servanthood must come before stardom. Joseph was thrown in a pit. He became a slave in Potiphar's house before ascending to the palace of Egypt. Moses took care of his father-in-law's sheep for 40 years before being the deliverer of the nation of Israel. David was a shepherd in the back of the desert before becoming the shepherd of God's people. Don't let popularity be your motive. It is only a temporary reward. Do not become overwhelmed by the situations you face, whether it be sickness, indebtedness, unemployment, domestic conflicts, interpersonal clashes. It may be that you are facing a situation today that is beyond your resources and you feel incapable of handling. You're not alone in this. We serve a God who is able to do exceedingly abundantly above all that we can ask or think, even beyond our wildest fantasies, according to the power that works in us. What power is at work in you? The power of faith or the power of fear? Do not despair. Spend some private time with God. It prepares you for dealing with the challenge. Jesus is in it. He's in it with us. And he already has a solution and knows what he's going to do. But he lets us face the problem to bring out what is in us, to prove us. Are we going to let the situation make us bitter or better? What's your perception? God can take the little you have and make it great. Do not minimize the value and potential of what you have in your hand. And don't despise the process. It comes before the product. Value the power of partnership. Exercise prudence in handling your resources. And finally, it's not about popularity. God deserves all the glory. He is a good Father, and he's well able to take care of us and see us through our times of need.
Oh, I they think you're like, but I've heard the tender whispers of love in the dead of night, and they tell me that you're pleased and that I'm never alone. You're a good, good Father. It's who speak peace so unexplainable. I can hardly think as you pull me deeper still, as you pull me deeper still, as you pull me deeper still into love, love, love. You're a good, good Father. It's who you are, and I'm loved by you. It's who I am. It's who I am. It's who I am. You're a good, good Father. It's who you are. It's who you are. It's who you are, and I'm loved by you. It's who I am. It's who I am. It's who I am. You're a good, good Father. It's who you are. It's who you are. It's who you are, and I'm loved by you. It's who I am. It's who I am. It's who I am. You are perfect in all of your ways. You are perfect in all of your ways. You are perfect in all of your ways to us. You are perfect in all of your ways. You are perfect in all of your ways. You are perfect in all of your ways to us. You're a good, good Father. It's who you are. It's who you are. It's who you are, and I'm loved by you. It's who I am. It's who I am. You're a good, good Father. It's who you are, and I'm loved by you. It's who I am. You're a good, good Father. And I'm loved by you. It's who I am. It's who I am. It's who I am. It's who you are. It's who you are. And I'm loved by you. It's who I am. It's who I am. You're a good, good Father. It's who you are. It's who you are. And I'm loved by you. It's who I am. It's who I am. It's who I am. You're a good, good Father. It's who you are. It's who you are. It's who you are, and I'm loved by you. It's who I am. It's who I am. It's who I am.
We thank you again for joining us, and we encourage you to log into our worship services on Sunday mornings at 7:45 a.m. and empowerment services every second and fourth Friday at 7 p.m. Find us on YouTube and Facebook and share our sessions with others. You can also use this time to further enhance the spiritual development of yourself and your family by accessing Right Now Media. The church continues to invest in this for your benefit, and we are giving you free access to the biggest Bible study video library in the world. There are sessions and programs for married couples, for families, and there is a whole host of material there for children. Log on and create your free account, and if you have never logged in or you do not have an account, you can find the link on our website. Our website is openbiblesiparia.org. For those of us who have the facility, let's continue to honor the Lord with our substance and the first fruit of our increase via online transfers to our account number 2616301 at First Citizens. It's a checking account in the name of the Incorporated Trustees of the Open Bible Standard Churches of Trinidad and Tobago, Siparia. Please remember to email the information to the office detailing the transaction date, amount, and purpose of funds so that our appropriation of these receipts could be accurate. Thanks again for watching, and until next time, stay safe and sanctified.